Yes.
We do have one more member that's going to be coming this evening, but we're going to go ahead and get started. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the January 29th special meeting of the Design Review Board. First up is roll call.
Board Member Holscher,
Here.
Vice Chair Rosner,
Here.
Chair Chong,
Here.
and hopefully Board Member Kim will be coming and Board Member Diorcio will be absent.
Thank you. Now is a chance for any oral communications for anyone wishing to address the Design Review Board for any items not on this evening's agenda. So if you have something that you wish to speak about that's not on this evening's agenda, if you could come forward, you have 3 minutes. All right. We'll also go to the Zoom call. If anybody is on the Zoom and wishes to address the board for any items not on this evening's agenda.
Chair Chong, there are no comments from the Zoom audience.
All right, thank you. With that, we'll move to staff briefing.
Good evening. This is my first meeting here. I'm Sherry Meads, a Community Development Director. I've met the Town Council and the Planning Commission. This is the first time I've been before your board, so I'm happy to be here tonight and look forward to getting to know the community and the board. We do have some meetings that we're trying to figure out and schedule for March. But other than that, I have nothing. In the interest of time, I will keep my mouth shut.
Excellent. Thank
Thank
you
you.
and welcome.
Thank you very much.
All right. Let the record show that Board Member Kim is now present. And with that, we move to the minutes, adoption of the minutes from the December the 4th meeting. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to make any comments on the minutes from the December 4th meeting? If you could go forward, if you're on the Zoom call, please use the raise hand feature at the bottom of the Zoom screen.
Chair Chong, there are no comments from the Zoom audience.
Any comments from the board on those minutes? Seeing none, we'd be looking for a motion to adopt the minutes from December 4th.
Do we have a?
If I abstain, do we have enough to vote?
Yes.
Okay. I make a motion to adopt the minutes from December 4th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And I'm abstaining, yeah.
All right. With that, we adopt the minutes from December 4th and move to the first public hearing for this evening. We have 2 public hearings. The first one is PH1 15 Acela Drive. The format that we'll use for this evening for both of our public hearings is the applicant will have up to 20 minutes to come and present, at which point there might be some questions from the Design Review Board. We'll also open it up to the public. Each member of the public will have up to 3 minutes to speak. And then the applicant will have the opportunity of 5 minutes to address any of the concerns that were raised. So with that, if the applicant for 15 Acela Drive could come forward.
Good evening. My name is Mohammed Sadria. I'm the architect on the project. And this home is currently under construction. And as a result of our discussions with the interior designer, with the cabinet makers, and other people involved, we came to the realization that the space that we allocated for the butler's pantry was such in a shape that was not very usable and very difficult to accommodate all the functions that we needed. And the reason that I had originally designed the space in this rather odd shape was because we wanted to stay within the side setbacks. But we discovered that if we could add just 19 square feet to this area, then it would really become functional and people could actually work there. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that this part of the original house had actually encroached quite a bit more into that setback. So there was a history of an encroachment into that setback. And number two, that this particular area is very well hidden from the public vantage point, and it also has a very low ceiling. So I believe that the impact that it would have to the public would be extremely minimal. And with that, I'm open to any questions.
Any questions for the applicant?
I have two. What is the finished floor to finished ceiling height of that space?
That space has I believe, an 8-foot ceiling height.
And then from there, what's the exterior? What is the sandwich for the roof on top of that? Is that 2 feet?
1 foot.
1 foot, okay. And then the second question is, do you anticipate any other asks? So could there be a creep in the scope in later things, or is this the only one that you?
I do not think so, because otherwise we would have brought it before you right now.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, thank you. We'll open it up to the public. Is there anybody here that wishes to speak about 15 Acela Drive? All right, we'll go to the Zoom call. If you could use the raise hand feature at the bottom of the Zoom screen, and we'll let you in if you wish to speak about 15 Acela.
Chair Chong, there are no public comments.
All right, thank you. So with that, you do have an additional 5 minutes, but since we didn't use all your 20 and there weren't any comments, any final questions from the board before we close the public portion? All right, with that, we'll take it back to the board. Would anybody like to lead us off on this one?
Yeah, I can start. I appreciate that it is a small move and that the butler's pantry would work better to be able to push into the setback. I do understand that. I do think that this is a new house. It was designed that way to respect the setbacks. I think there is a way to accommodate a larger butler's pantry by pushing into the kitchen a little bit. And if they don't want to lose any room off the kitchen, they can push it into the bar and take a little room away from the bar. I find it difficult to support the findings for this, which seems a self-created issue. And yes, the previous house did push into the setback, but this is a brand new house and they knew about these setbacks from the beginning. So that's how I feel.
I wasn't expecting that. But I think Board Member Holster makes a compelling argument in that, you know, I visited the site. At first glance, it seems so trivial. It is hidden. I don't think it'll have a material impact. But it is about trying to be objective about making the findings for the variance. And I think that it is a big house. It is, if there's opportunities to, make modifications, I think it behooves us as a board to push on that. So I would be interested to hear if folks on the board feel the same way. But I do agree with you that it's one of those, it's a process, right? And how do we want to think about that?
All right.
I think I align with you, Board Member Holscher, because I think the findings, we have to be able to make the findings. And I think the one that did trouble me is a self-made hardship. And it's an oops that's trying to be corrected through a pretty extraordinary means, which is a variance. Yeah, 2 variances. Yeah.
And an FAE.
Yeah.
So
So
three-
lot.
three
Yeah,
non-conforming.
there's a
Okay.
lot going on. So, there's probably other ways to solve this, but I think it's not a variance solve. I think it's an architectural solve. So
That's right.
that's how I'm feeling. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a small thing, but it's a big ask for a very small change.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little bit more on the fence, it sounds like, than you all were. I was, I guess I felt like it was such a small change. I
It
felt
is.
like it what, I mean, I think that the point that you made, like, this is like a brand, or one of you made it, it's like a brand new project, right? It could have just been done from the beginning. And we probably wouldn't have been supportive of the variance. But I also know that sometimes these mid-projects have these small changes that need to be made, which is why I was kind of leaning a little bit, but I think that I'm probably in the minority here, and I could definitely see the difficulty around making the hardship,
Yeah.
self-created hardship finding.
And you're absolutely right. Things happen during construction and I totally get that. But I think there is a creative way to get what they want without just
redesign
pushing
the
into the
interior.
setback.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
All right. Well, in that case, it sounds like we're in the same place, which would be, it doesn't, I mean, it's such a small change. It doesn't seem like there's a continuance that really helped the situation. I mean, this is more of like, I think a yay or nay on the request, on the application, right? I don't think there's,
seems that
what's
way.
that? Yeah.
I think so.
I don't think there's a redesign that would come back to us that when it probably ask, and if it was a redesign that's interior that doesn't ask for the variance, then it's something that staff would be able to approve.
Yeah.
For an interior change. Uh, yeah, so we closed the public portion of the hearing. So I mean, I'm happy to reopen the public hearing simply to ask if you would prefer a continuance. Otherwise, I think we're heading toward denying the application. But if you want a continuance, then we'll open it. So maybe I'll make the motion to open the hearing simply to ask the applicant if they would prefer a continuance.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Hi.
Opposed? None? All right, so yeah, if you could come back up. And again, I think we're just looking for not necessarily kind of any new facts or anything like that, but just like, hey, would you want to continue us to try to redesign
I
something?
just wanted to mention that there was also a request for readjustment and of skylights. So if you could please address that item also.
Okay, all right, thanks. So maybe let's, all right, so let's reclose the public portion of the hearing. And maybe if we could just address specifically the skylights, maybe could start in the same order. Maybe, I don't know if you have any opinions. on the
I
skylight.
have no issue with the skylights. Yeah,
Agreed.
totally great.
I'm okay with that as well.
Yep.
All right,
And it'll meet the dark sky requirements and stuff.
Right.
So I have confidence that the building code department will make sure it conforms to code.
so in that case, I think we'd be looking for a motion that basically condition of approval, not approving the remodel portion that asks for the variance and simply essentially approval on the skylights. So, yeah, so could we have it? So maybe you just double check with staff if we capture kind of what we're looking to do here, which is to
amend the.
yeah, so we would be approving the application with a condition of approval that the pantry and variances are not approved. Right. I'd like to make a motion. Yeah.
Motion to amend the,
So I think that we have a draft resolution. So I think we'd be looking for a motion to adopt the draft resolution with the conditions that we're eliminating portions of it.
yeah, motion to adopt the draft resolution with condition that the building is not altered to breach the side setback requiring a variance as requested.
I am so sorry to interrupt through the chair. Actually, the motion should be to deny the variances for each, the side yard setback, the lot coverage, and the floor area exception, and approving the.
Okay, so,
Stipulate.
so no draft resolution, the draft resolution is no longer,
Well, because the
What
draft
was-
resolution's for an approval.
Right. So we'll have to,
read.
So yeah, I think it's technically like, the motion would be to direct staff to prepare a draft resolution and then.
and that can come back to you on consent.
Motion to direct staff to draft a resolution denying the variances for the side yard setback and FAR increase and accepting the changes for the skylight. Was it lot coverage or FAR?
And
lot
denying
coverage.
lot coverage too.
And lot coverage. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then do we have a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
I,
Opposed, none. And with that, we wrap up PH1 and move on to the next item on this evening's hearing, public hearing, PH2, 68 Mercury Avenue. If the applicant could come forward, please. Again, you'll have 20 minutes to present.
I'm going to go first and then hand over to my architects. Just good evening, Chair Chong, Vice Chair Rosner, and members of the Design Review Board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight and for your careful consideration of our application as summarized in the staff report. We appreciate the thorough analysis provided by the town staff, and we acknowledge the staff's conclusion that this project has been determined to be categorically exempt from CEQA under Section 15.301 as it pertains to existing facilities and alterations. We also want to recognize that our proposal meets all applicable zoning and development standards, including height, setbacks, floor area, and lot coverage, without the need for variances. We have worked closely with our architect and structural engineer to ensure that the planned additions, including the new second floor and expanded first floor living spaces, retain more than 50% of the existing exterior wall framing to remain consistent with the town's criteria for substantial remodels rather than new construction. Since submitting the application, we have reviewed the public comments and understands the board interest in how the design relates to the guiding principles on site layout, neighborhood character, privacy, and views. We believe the project thoroughly responds to these principles and neighborhood context, and we look forward to addressing questions you might have. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to my architects.
I'm Heather from Hi, I'm Heather from Wright Architecture. Forgive me, I'm just learning how to use this pointer. I just want to start by speaking to how this project started, what our goals were, and why we landed where we are. And also acknowledge that, we've received a lot of response from the neighbors disliking the idea of a second story, but I want to describe why we arrived at a second story. So this is a corner lot. See if I can do this. Is it, oh, there we go. So this is a corner lot. This is the site plan for your reference. And it shows the existing structure as it is, which is a single-story gable roof structure. And you can see the position of the residence in relation to the lot configuration is at a diagonal. And you can also see that that back corner, I'll see if I can do this pointer thing. Ooh. The back corner of the existing structure is within the setback here. So we have an existing nonconformity. And this house has been here for a long time. So we're looking at, starting this project, we're looking at how to make this a, more modern, livable site for today's standards. It has a small current square footage and undersized bedrooms, et cetera, kind of the typical parcelized closed off kitchen, living room, all that. So we're looking at increasing the square footage. And you can see the only areas to do that, if we maintain the footprint, are, and that assumes we keep 50% of the existing, are here and here. And, you know, we could do some strange triangular thing or expand here. So our options become demolish the whole thing, rebuild a new house within the setbacks, or work within the existing construction and expand where we can. We came to the conclusion that adding a partial second story that stepped back from the front was a respectful way to comply with all of the zoning standards and keep a reasonable structure that's in context with the neighborhood. So that's why we ended up there. So we are not asking for any variances. We have also created an exhibit, and I apologize, I'm going to zoom forward quite a bit, of the neighborhood context here. Sorry, bear with me. Here we go. So this is the neighborhood. We've highlighted the second story structures, or the stories, the houses with 2 stories with a red circle, and the houses that are a story and a half, about 20-ish square feet or height. You know, we didn't go measure, but we took photos of all of these. And what we've come to the conclusion is that there's about 11% of the existing neighborhood has 2 stories or a partial second story. And there you can see those 2 yellow houses are like a story and a half. And that's just for reference. So that's in our part of our reasoning that there is context, even in the flats, of partial second stories. And we have a tough lot. And so that's the reason we are asking for this. And we feel that we've developed it in such, or we've drawn it in such a way that we're minimizing the mass of that second story. We're also, let me go back to our 3D drawings. Sorry about this. So you can see the second story is on the right side here, what we're proposing. This is the existing structure. So you can see we're maintaining the existing roof line here. That's literally the existing roof we're keeping. And then partially popping up. And this is back from the front, and I'll show you that in 3D in a moment. But what I want to speak to is we hear the neighborhood's concerns. And what our goal is to come out of this hearing is with clear direction on what a compromise might be to achieve like a livable home with adequate square footage for the neighborhood. So we're looking for guidance tonight. And my big questions are, will it be enough to go with a flat roof on that second story, which would then put, you do have to have a little finger to push this button, which would put our roof at the roughly the plate line here. We haven't modeled it because we just want to have a conversation first, which would keep us compliant with all of the zoning laws. And it would bring down the roof height about 5 feet from where it is now. The reason we went with the gable was to fit into the context and the look of the neighborhood. But we're happy to go with a flat roof if that mitigates the height and bulk concerns. And the other consideration is whether the board would consider a request for a variance in lot coverage and setbacks on the first level in order to achieve a design that's on the main level while maintaining the existing orientation of the structure. Because as you can imagine, it's both from a sustainability standpoint, as architects, we always look at things and say, what can we keep, not what can we tear down to build something new. And so we're trying to be responsible and keep the existing footprint and footings, the foundations, walls and roof to 50%. to be responsible and also to save cost for the construction. And I know that there was a concern about whether it's actually feasible to keep what we're showing we're keeping. We've done a careful calculation on the elevations in the roof plan. The roof, I feel very confident we can keep more than 50%. The walls are very close. And so that's part of the challenge to the construction team, to be absolutely careful to keep everything existing that we've shown to keep. Our plan to keep that is we've consulted a structural engineer to confirm that it can be doable, or that it's doable. And we are going to instruct the contractor to be very careful. And the way we will pull it off is by sistering framing against the existing. So there will be new framing in there. We would just keep the existing. I think that covers everything. So thank you for your consideration. We appreciate it.
Any questions for the applicant? Before we open it to the public?
I have a few questions. Can you bring up A1? How much distance is there from the top right corner to the property line?
The existing, I'm sorry.
If
Existing.
you could, we're recording it, so if you could take your mic with you if you're going to speak.
A little over 14 feet.
14 feet?
Mhm.
Okay. That's all for now. Thanks.
Any other questions?
That's the existing site plan. So our new site plan, the roof overhang is overhanging the setback, but we are going up to the corner is going right up to the setback. So I just want to be clear.
I just have one question. On the other side where the shed is, for the story poles, are the story poles located and installed at the outside of the overhang, the roof overhang, instead of the wall?
Let me just go to the story pole plan. They are indeed.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have questions for staff, but maybe I'll hold off until after all the comments.
I had one question, and I heard your comment about kind of what, like, the board's not going to be able tonight, or I'd be able to kind of pre-approve a variance or a lot coverage or something like that until we actually see the application and know exactly what the numbers are. That said, I guess I'm kind of curious to hear what one-story versions you explored and what that would kind of look like that still allowed you to achieve some of the design objectives from a square footage standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, at a very basic level, what I would be looking into, and we haven't done this work just to be sensitive to our time involved, would be doing an addition in here that would allow an additional bedroom on the lower level.
Okay.
And it's to be determined, and I understand that you can't approve something you haven't seen, or yeah.
Okay. So,
I'm sorry, I was looking down. Did you point somewhere?
yeah, there was on the side of the.
Okay, what are we
Side
talking
there.
about? Okay.
Okay.
And possibly the other side
Okay.
as well.
All right. Thank you. With that, we will open it up to the public, knowing that there's might be a number of comments. I just wanted to point out a couple things. One is we definitely received all of the letters from everyone. I think that all total there's 14 of them that came in, including the late mails. So we have read those, but you're absolutely welcome to come up, speak. We do ask everyone to keep it to 3 minutes per individual. If you could state your name and address for the record. And I will give everybody a hard stop at 3 minutes, just so that if we have a lot of people speaking, that we don't run too late tonight. So with that, if anybody would like to come up and speak, please come up and state your name and address. All right.
Yeah, I'm Mike Helms, 38 Mercury. Been in the hood a long time. I'm pretty opposed. I don't want second stories. That's just the way I am because of views, privacy, the big issue, and sunlight. And that's short and sweet. I'm just against 2 stories in the Belveron, especially on the inner circle. So that's really all I got to say. I wasn't on any of the lists. I was late on the email, so, that's it.
All right, thank you.
Short and sweet.
Would anybody else like to come up? Please come on up.
Paul Stanley, 50 Mercury.
My name's Melissa Hops and I live at 11 Juneau Road. It's on the inner circle, and I, like Mike, am opposed to second stories. And about 15 years ago, I was here with a design review on behalf of Dana Thor, who was up the street from me on Juneau, because a person behind her wanted a 2-story. And there were several design review meetings, I'm sure you guys have them in the history, where it was kind of decided that it would be heavily discouraged for any future houses in the inner circle to have a second story. So I figured this just had to come up again, but I'm just reiterating, my desire to keep all homes looking somewhat similar. The house across the street from this new structure is large. It's on a corner lot, and they seem to have figured out a way to make a big home on 1 story. And I've lived there over 35 years. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hi, Paul Stanley, 50 Mercury. Kitty and I have lived there for going on 42 years and love the neighborhood. Do oppose second stories, particularly on the inner circles. I feel that this house is way beyond what I would expect in our community. These lots were designed to accommodate 950, 1,100 square foot homes. Originally had a suburban feel to the neighborhood. I just feel that it's becoming more urbanized. Soon we'll have common walls. I see some of these, they go right up to the backyard, right up to the adjoining walls. It's just too big. So that's all I got to say.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Vivek Patel. I live at 31 Apollo across the street from the proposed construction, and I'm opposed to the second story. I'm in favor of building. There's a lot of building that's been happening in Belveron. I'm sure you guys are very well familiar with it, and I think it's great generally. But I think that, from being across the street or just walking around the neighborhood, if you look at the story poles as they stand, somehow it just feels a little overbearing, the setback currently to the second story. You can just see how that would affect views, affect light, affect privacy. And from reading, I don't know if this is a place to ask questions, but from reading, the council's proposed, recommendations, I don't know if the recommendations or rules for the inner side of Belveron would be great to understand what those mean or how they're interpreted. Because while there was a map up earlier of how many houses have second or a story and a half, I think our house is in there across the street, but really there's no way to even access that story and a half. It's not really a second story. It's like just for letting some light into the first story. And so just trying to understand, like, maybe now's not the time, but would love to hear how the council sees that recommendation.
All right, excellent. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for your volunteering. We really appreciate this. Christine Patel, I live on 31 Apollo Road, just across from the proposed structure of 68 Mercury. I guess my question, I helped put together a petition, and obviously there's a lot of opinions that don't support this new structure being proposed. But I think beyond that, I would just want to ask if you can look at other Belveron corner lots that have new designs with 1 story. So for example, 31 Apollo, where we live, is actually reoriented. So it's not at a diagonal, but it's changed to be parallel to Apollo. So that actually expands differently. It gets more square footage. It's 1 story. I think 35 Juneau is another corner lot in Belveron to look at. They just had a new design and structure. They're going through construction right now. It's a good proxy to look at 1 story that's being rebuilt and also gets more square footage. So I'm wondering if there's a way to look at a win-win situation where you can still have a square footage that you want that has, you know, privacy, views and everything that fits in the neighborhood, and is within character. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nina Wang. I live next door at 72 Mercury from 68 Mercury. I think there are a lot of points about the proposed plan that I think are a good idea. Like, it's a great idea to want to improve the neighborhood. And it's a great idea to add value, and we understand the desire to add square footage. I think where we really differ is how it's achieved. And adding a second story, especially being next door, is a challenge. We work from home full-time all week long, and it obstructs the views. We put in a window directly overlooking that hill specifically to capture that. We engaged with the neighbor and the architect 4 months ago to give them adequate time, being very clear about what our concerns are. And we're hoping that in further attempts, they might consider expanding, but in a different way, expanding out instead of up, similar to the way 31 Apollo has configured and expanded their square footage. So that's our main concern. But from the interior, it really creates a view blockage and an obstruction of light.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Judy Dick, and I live at 16 Juneau Road, and I've been there for about 27 years. So I went on a walk this morning around the whole neighborhood, which I do sometimes, and everybody does. It's a great neighborhood, and I saw many second stories. I mean, I think there's about 6 of them. And I guess with the half stories, there could be more, or maybe one of the half stories I might have thought was a full story. I mean, I don't know. But the house that is there now was built 75 years ago. And I think the house that he showed us will look really beautiful in the neighborhood. And when I walk down my street, Juneau, and then I cross the little Juneau Road, which comes into the real Juneau Road, there's a big house being built right now, super modern, on that corner lot. And there's not going to be much grass around it. I mean, it's covering almost the whole lot, just to a layperson. And the same is true right opposite that on Juneau Road. There's another corner, and they're completely rebuilding the house, which will be wonderful. And it looks like it's going to be really large. And I just, I think it'll add to the community. And I don't see, if they're staying within the parameters, what the big deal is, because to my eye, there were several other second stories already there. And I've been in some of them, and they're pretty nice, you know. And the second story, I think on this is going to be about, what, 700 square feet or something like that. And, you know, I just don't think that that's too intrusive. And so as a neighbor, I'm just saying I like it.
All right. Thank you.
Hi, Christopher Sukor. I live at 72 Mercury, directly next to the site under review tonight. We moved here in 2020, so after the town had published the first version of guidance on second story, residential guidance. And we thought about that when we put our letter together, and obviously respecting, our neighbor's right to, build a home for himself and, with enough square footage to, to live comfortably, which, again, supportive of that. But I think if we kind of look line for line at the town's published guidance, and then we look specifically from our perspective, I think we're in a unique position given the impact to views and probably even more importantly, privacy of what that second story would do. You'll have windows that would look into our backyard and would have views into windows in our house as well. And I think whether the roof is peaked or flat, that doesn't really change. I think, perhaps there are other second story homes in the neighborhood, and perhaps these guidelines in 2015 were created so that there wouldn't be more. So I think just the, is there a precedent? Sure, but that doesn't mean that because there's a precedent, it was correct and that it should be continued. I think the guidance probably stands as a testament to that. So again, I appreciate the council's consideration here and taking all feedback. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Ann Hunt. I live at 33 Juneau Road. The back of my house is directly opposite the back of 68 Mercury. And I was kind of shocked when the story poles went up because it blocks so much of what I can see of the neighborhood and the view. And I just would like it if it were a smaller second story or not as high. It's pretty massive. I was pretty shocked when the story poles went up. And I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
I'm Jerry Lewis. I live right across the street at 67 Mercury. Just want to comment, just like the lady said, it's a very huge structure. Maybe scaling it back, maybe using more of the lot. I know they said they had a problem because of the angle, but from coming outside of my house and looking up, it's huge. All comment I have.
All right, thank you. Additional public comment?
Hi, Lori DiPaolo, 41 Mercury Avenue. I've been in the neighborhood over 20 years. I think I've seen you guys do some great jobs with asking people who've come here for double stories and saying, look, can you go back and try one level? Because you architects are incredibly creative. We've seen what you can do. And I've seen every one of those homes be gorgeous, leave plenty of lawn, and still meet one level and get up to almost 3,000 square feet. So I would ask that you go back, give them variance if they need it. I think everyone in this room who's opposed it would agree to that. They would be happy, the neighborhood would be happy, we'd have the privacy, and we would still keep our views. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? With that, we'll go to the Zoom to see if anybody, if you are on the Zoom call, if you could use the raise hand feature at the bottom, and we'll let you into the room.
Chair Chung, I do have a public comment. I'm going to turn on the audio for Mary McDevitt.
Yes, I concur with the last few statements that were made that as designed, the structure is imposing. It's towering over all other structures. It obstructs the view from many angles. And I think there could be a more creative way to design a remodel on that lot. I know the lot is challenging, however, it could be reoriented. And, you know, whether that's a cost factor or a design issue, you know, I doubt it is a design issue, but I think that it's totally out of character for the neighborhood. And I agree with all of the other folks who've commented with their concerns tonight.
Thank you. And Mary, if you could state your address, please.
I'm sorry, 38 Juneau Road. I'm 2 houses from this house, and it obstructs my view of the mountain. So, and I sent a letter with very specific concerns into your package that you should have there.
All right. Thank you. All right. Any additional comment from the Zoom call?
Chair Chong, there are no more hands raised.
All right. Thank you. With that, if there's no comment from anybody else in the room here, we will bring it back to the applicant. You have up to 5 minutes to address any of the concerns that were raised.
Hi. I'd like to acknowledge we hear you. One of the challenges with this lot, I mean, I think one of the neighbors spoke to this. It's the angle. It's not just the corner lot. It's the angle and the corner. So really, to get a reasonable home that would warrant the amount of energy it takes to get a remodel and addition done on this lot, we feel strongly that we would need a variance in order to achieve that. And I know you can't, if we don't do a second story. I know that you can't say that you would approve that, but what I guess we're asking for, if a single story solution is the more preferred, single story with a variance for setbacks and lot coverage specifically, we'd love to hear if that would be something that would be reviewed, that would be taken into consideration and possibly versus if it's just something that's a no-go, we'd like to know. But yeah, I think there is a substantial cost difference if we were to tear down this structure and rebuild oriented with the property lines, as well as just wasting something that's already there. So that's our perspective.
All right. Thank you.
I have a couple
Oh,
questions.
yes. Yeah, we might have some questions. Right.
Trying to get away.
I actually have two questions. Apologize for me munching on chips. The first is, have you done a sun study? So looking at the shading of the structure through seasons and various times of the day. Have you done like a model like that?
We have not. We do have a 3D model, but we're happy to do a sun study if that would help the
I think
determination.
that's pretty easy to do in BIM. Yeah. The second question is, I think something that you raised that we haven't really talked about on the design review board ever since I've been here is embodied carbon. And have you done an analysis of tearing down the entire structure, reorienting it versus adding a second story versus keeping it all on the first level and adding spaces? And have you done an embodied carbon analysis to understand the carbon emissions of the 3 scenarios?
I haven't, but we certainly could.
Okay.
I have a question. Might be for the applicant or staff. What's the status of this pool, which is under a separate building permit? Has that?
So it's just simply that we don't typically engineer or design the details of the pool, but we would like it to be considered as a part of the planning submittal.
Okay, so this
We
pool is part of the
hire.
design.
The pool and all the exterior landscape improvements are part of what's included in the application.
Okay.
It's just if this gets approved, it would be done, the approval for the building permits would be separate from
Okay.
the construction of the house.
Because the pool experts are pool experts.
Yeah, I just didn't know if there was already a
Yeah.
permit out there or something like that. Just wanted to, thank you.
Phoebe, any questions?
I don't think so.
All right, so thank you.
I have questions for staff though.
Yeah, all right, so we'll go ahead and we won't close the public hearing yet.
I have questions. So in terms of the code and how we as a design review board is supposed to look at this, is there anything that talks about, especially because with the zoning code, does it talk about that there shall not be a second story? And that's the first question. And the second question is about the guidance. Is that legislated? Is that promulgated? Is that something that's in the code, or is it just some statement that I don't know how to view that? So any sort of guidance would be really helpful.
Just to clarify, are you referring to the second story guidance, the fact sheet or the
Yeah.
guidance sheet for second story additions?
Yeah, so the code, the municipal code for that zone allows for up to 30 feet, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And there is nothing in the code that explicitly states, there's not like an overlay district or something that specifies that in Belveron and Bel Air, second stories are prohibited. Per the code, the maximum height that you're allowed for primary structure, such as a primary dwelling unit, would be 30 feet. There is language that talk in the code that references neighborhood character and trying to retain single story homes and single story neighborhoods, but there's nothing that expressly prohibits second stories from being built in the interior or exterior of the Belveron neighborhood in the zoning code. There's nothing in the general plan that dictates that as well. Regarding guidance, the second story addition handout was not something that has ever been adopted by the Planning Commission or Town Council. So that was just more of a, I don't know, reference sheet or opinion sheet that was prepared by a prior director. But that was never anything that was adopted.
And if I may add to that through the chair, that was 10 years ago that was done. And there is what's called a version 2 of that document that's more recent. However, it did not address any of the language in the document. It changed the logo and the font and stuff to be brought up to how Tiburon now markets itself.
The second question deals with accessory dwelling unit. So suppose that there is an accessory dwelling unit portion, a junior ADU or something on the first floor. What does that do to a person's ability to build on the second floor? Can you walk us through what that would sort of look like? And whether or not we would be able to comment?
I mean, it would depend on the ADU that's proposed, but we can go from 16 feet for a detached accessory dwelling unit for height up to 25 feet for an attached accessory dwelling unit.
So in that case, if there was an application for an ADU, we wouldn't be able to comment at all about the bulk of that.
A
And-
25-foot ADU would meet the local zone, would meet the state law, and it would be approved ministerially without discretionary review. If it meets all the other standards, so other setback standards and
So the
size and things
the
like that.
objective design standards that Tiburon has established, as long as it meets those, or is it just even a broader set of standards?
It's the setbacks, the size of the ADU. So I think it's 1,200 square feet for a two bedroom, more than one bedroom ADU. So it just depends on the ADU that's proposed, but height is obviously not the only requirement. So if it meets all the requirements and the height is 25 feet, it would be approved without discretionary review.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
And and 4-foot setbacks. Yes.
Okay.
That's a big one. Yes.
4-foot setbacks, except for the front yard.
Yeah, that is true.
You good? All right, so with that, we'll close the public portion of the hearing and bring it back to the board. Would anybody like to lead us off?
I started last
Don't
time.
everybody speak at once. I mean, I can also lead us off.
I can too. It
What?
doesn't matter.
I'll lead us off.
All right.
sorry, I'm munching again. I think to have a broad mandate to say you shall not have a second floor, I am not convinced by that. I think just saying that without the context of a particular lot and the situation, I think to institute that here, we don't have the discretion to do that. It's something that council would sort of require upon us. So I think, resorting to an argument saying we can't have that. However, we have as a board said, if you don't go on the second floor, if you don't add a second floor, we'd be willing to consider variances for this setback and lot coverage. And so where you encroach the setback. So that's where I've seen the board sort of go in that direction. Like if you're willing to keep it at 1 story, we can make the findings potentially for a variance. I do appreciate, the second thing I did appreciate that the architect brought up was reuse, reusing an existing building. It does add significantly. It does add, tearing down something has a life cycle impact. So there's an impact there that, we have to start considering. This is something that in our lifetime that this is what I struggle with every day, is what is the construction emissions of something, and reusing something is the best solution to something, is the most, low emissions sort of solution. So I do appreciate that the architect sort of came up with that as sort of like, okay, this is where I'm going to start from. This is the foundation where I'm going to start my design. Given all that, I think the massing of the second floor, it seems out of scale, like it compared to the first floor. There's something about it that the partie of like having this one piece here and this flat piece, it doesn't feel like a harmonious piece. That was my sort of like architecturally, like just looking at it, like I'm wondering if there is another iteration of that we could view. But, the architect also seemed conciliatory, like we can try a flat roof, which could change the lines. And I think it could look a little bit less, it just looks like something they stuck on top of on a structure. So I'm just wondering if there's a second iteration that we could view. And I'm also welcome to look at, I'm open to looking at just something where they do start encroaching on that giant setback. I mean, it's a giant setback on that one side. And then something where the lot coverage is different. But yeah, I think the biggest issue is that it's not on the grid. So whatever they do, it's just going to be really obtrusive. It's at an angle, and that's the hardest design issue. It's very, very hard to do a 45-degree angle. So, but I welcome a second iteration. I think that's where I stand. I want to see a second iteration at this point. And then I'm not against second floors.
Should I go? Okay. Yeah, I agree. I also think that the story poles, it's kind of unfortunate that all the story poles were installed at the outside edge of the eaves because those are all overhangs. It's not as massive as it looks with the way the story poles were put in place. I agree. I'm not opposed. I certainly empathize with not wanting change. I drove around the neighborhood. There are 14 full second stories in the entire neighborhood. There are 8 second stories, not 1.5, 2 stories in the flats. So there have been approvals before. I think that the corner lot, it's, as you just said, Suzanne, it is difficult because that diagonal it's impossible to expand without encroaching into the setbacks unless you have some really goofy spaces. I also think that the way the house is, and I'm looking at the site plan here, it's because it's on the corner lot, it's pulled toward the street a little bit and it's pulled back from the neighboring houses. So the second story, even, as large as it looks, it is pulled back from, what is that, 30 Apollo, so you're not at least having any direct sight line in that direction. I think that there is some things I want to suggest just thinking about for our discussion. Window placement. To me, the windows, if there were more windows on whatever volume, like maybe the volume can be shrunk, maybe the roof can either be flat or pitched more. Some of the second stories in the beginning, when you first drive into Belveron, they are tucked under the roof more. So you'd give up some wall space on the outer edges of the volumes, but it would pull the volume down. I think there might be some creative work there. The other thing, let's see, I've got so windows. If you were to put windows on the sides closer to the road, you're not going to be looking down over the neighboring house, So I think window placement, pulling the windows toward the center of the back, which is the most sensitive area, is the facade that faces their backyard, their triangular backyard. So I think there can be something sensitively done with windows. I think the size, it is within the floor area, acceptable floor area. It is the largest of the additions, So can it be a little bit more modest? Can it be, articulated with different roofs? If they want to look at the first story, I know the neighbors would certainly appreciate that. It's just that that's an awkward site to work with the existing house. Even with setback variances, it's awkward the way they decided back in the day when they first built it to have it at that diagonal. So I think from a spatial point of view, the second story, I get why they want to do that, and I think it makes sense from that point of view. I also think, again, because of that diagonal relationship, and forgive me if I'm repeating myself, it feels a little bit different. The addition is not, we don't have two houses parallel to each other, each 8 feet off the fence. So this second story addition is actually set quite a bit back from the closest building, next to it on the other side of the fence, the neighbor's house. And I think that is a plus. I think that is about it for my comments on kind of ideas and thoughts about that for now.
I have a few thoughts. I did visit a few neighbors, including going in the backyard of the next door neighbor at 72, I believe. Generally, I try to take an objective lens on this, given our guidelines. And Sam provided some really great data for me that I requested, just to kind of idea of what is the difference, where does this lot fit with like the rest of the lots in terms of size, in terms of buildable space. And for the interior the interior homes, which I was provided only 3 have second stories, not 8. That's the data I was provided from the town, that it was only 3 on the interior. This lot size is smack dab in the middle of the median lot size, at 7,500 square feet. So I don't think it's constrained by lot size. I get the argument that it is a corner, but you kind of hit the nail on the head. The biggest issue with this design is they are trying to build on the existing site, which has these angles. And I don't know if that is, that to me seems self-created hardship. To basically go against the official guidance. I agree, I'm not like opposed 100% no second stories, but in trying to be objective, and we have to make a finding that the application number 3 in the guidelines is neighborhood character. I think statistically it is, and architecturally, I don't find that it meets that finding. We do have official guidance in the second story home additions, which calls out this neighborhood. It does say that, the board should consider granting variances if a 2-story home would not fit into the neighborhood pattern. I just thinking objectively through our guidelines and the data of this lot and what they're trying, the reason why they've designed what they've designed, I'm having trouble making the findings to approve this application. I think it has a material impact in the backyard at 72. It is, I don't think making it a flat roof is going to kind of minimize that bulk from their primary only outdoor space. It is their primary view up into the hills from, the outdoor patio. So I see what you're saying with reusing 50% and
It's a code issue. I mean, that's why.
what is a code issue?
The 50%. That's why they're probably compelled, because you have to add in sprinklers and other requirements.
So they have
Yeah.
that anyway.
No, I guess I'm saying I understand the attempt to keep as much as you can, but that is creating the problem because, like you said, that the existing house is in a bad spot to be try and be a 2,700 square foot house. So that's kind of where I land. I do want to make a comment. I think some of the neighbors brought up I think, a couple great points. The neighborhood, every time I go into that neighborhood, and I don't spend a lot of time, but walking around for projects, I do love the neighborhood. I think the architecture of some of these newer homes that are 1 stories have made it a very interesting, just really, interesting, beautiful neighborhood. I don't think we need to, and I think most of those are 1 stories. So, and size, I think, 7 Apollo is a good example. That's a 2,700 square foot house, modern, beautiful, on a lot that's basically the same size. So, I do think this isn't a case where, the only way to get a, livable house in modern standards is to add a second story. I think there's a lot of alternatives that could be done, but I think it requires to potentially resite the house. That's where I'm at.
If I may, through the chair, I'd like to make sure that we're very clear that those guidelines, if we're talking about the guidelines for second story, those are not official. They have not been adopted in any way, shape, or form. Frankly, they should not be on the website. And one of the things I'm going to do is remove them because they are a former director's opinion. It would be like if I put something on there saying, yay, second stories, it's not appropriate. That is not my decision. That is for the board to decide. So I would caution you to not refer to them as official if we're talking about that one particular document. And then also to clarify that an existing home in an awkward, configuration is not a self-created hardship in any way. That is something they purchased that was already there. So they didn't self-create that. It wouldn't be considered a self-created hardship.
I have thoughts on that, but
All right. So, all right, my comments on this. So I've formed a pretty strong opinion over the years on Belveron. I've been on this board for an embarrassingly long time at this point, and I think the first application that I strongly remember coming through around second stories was 22 Mercury. And it came through, which is kind of when you first come in, it's on the right between Apollo and the rest of Mercury. And it was application. And I remember saying, because I got quoted this over and over again from the applicant for the future times it came through, was like, I'm like, hey, I said I would struggle ever approving a 2-story in Belveron. And then this application just kept coming back with like, okay, we're going to move it back a bit and we're going to stuff it in the corner and we're going to make it smaller. And then came the sun studies, architects with sun studies about how it was going to not impact light and all these things. And eventually it was almost like, you know, you kind of feel beaten down, but you're also, okay, maybe this is okay to have this second story version. And we ended up approving it only for it to get appealed and overturned by the town council. So it never ended up getting built. So then fast forward over the years, there's like, it almost became the running joke. We called it the Belveron special, or at least I did, which is like, you know, we grant variances for lot coverage and setbacks because it's very much what this neighborhood wants, right? And if you look at this neighborhood and Bel Air are the two neighborhoods that feel very, very strongly about not having second stories. And I think the reason that they feel strongly, and I didn't feel it fully appreciated until I actually lived in Belveron for a little while, is that, you know, you can really see it when you go up on Ring Mountain. You can kind of see that Belveron sits in this little bowl, right? And it's surrounded by, you know, Turtle Rock on one side and Ring Mountain on the other side and the Trestle Glen Hill on the other side. And so if you have two stories, then it kind of destroys this like feeling. One of the reasons it's kind of enjoyable is it's not like you're in a big flat plain forever. It's like you're in this little pocket, this little bowl, right? And I think that two stories, like, and I think the neighborhood's been pretty clear. It's the interior that's a problem. Like they showed the map of all the two stories, and it's very much an exterior. Like Venus is never counted. We've approved second stories many times on Venus just because it looks and feels very differently and doesn't impact kind of what's going on. And then also the ones that tend to be on the exterior that don't block kind of that hillside view from when you're like walking around Apollo and some of the inner streets. And so, you know, there's also one that came through 26 Apollo, which ended up having to kind of redesign to keep it down. And so when I was living in Belveron, I'd walk around and actually feel that the two stories that had gotten approved, and I think there's only, I think, what, four, what's that?
There's 8
On the interior. I kind of feel like they were a mistake, right? Like the board changes over on a semi-regular basis where people come through, and so does the town council for appeals. But I kind of feel like those were just like should not have gotten approved. And just because the code says that, yes, you can build a two-story, like the whole purpose of the design review board is that we like go through the kind of subjective nature of it, right? Like, yes, you can build a two-story, but if that two-story is going to block your neighbor's view of the Golden Gate Bridge, then we say no. And so I kind of feel that similar, like one of the considerations is neighborhood character, and it's a neighborhood that's felt very strongly for a long time that two stories shouldn't be built in the interior. And I think that there's enough room on this lot to build a nice home that accomplishes what you need to from a development, square footage, updating, that you don't have to do a two-story. And I went, you know, I went through the full exercise when I went out there this morning. I was like, okay, what about a flat roof? What if the story poles were like 5 feet lower or whatever? And I still think, especially on the corner lot, I think if anything, it's not like you can just tuck it as easily toward the back, like some of those, you know, master suites that have been moved toward the back of the lot. So for me, not only would I not be able to support this application, I just don't think I could support like a two-story, even if it came back with like, we're moving it, we're lowering it or whatever. I feel pretty strongly that the lot could be developed another way. So, and I think the other thing is, and there's always the talk both from the board, from staff, from neighbors, from applicants about precedent, right? And one of the things that I was told when I first came on the board was like, precedent doesn't matter. You have to look at every single like project, you know, for itself, like what it's doing from an impact standpoint, from a variance standpoint or whatever. And it's just because one has been built, I don't think really should set the precedent on like, okay, now it's free reign for this, just because, you know, again, one board at one point in time made some decision on something. So.
Can I ask staff, since there's some debate right now on the statistics of interior second stories?
Well, kind of put me on spot on that one. So when I pulled the 3 that were referenced in the staff report, that was true habitable second stories. There are a lot of homes that have taller, like great rooms, or they have sort of these taller additions, but I was referencing, and I may have missed it. I mean, I hope not, but I try to be thorough. I was looking at true habitable second stories where there are additions, not just increased ceiling heights. Pop up. Pardon me.
Thank you.
So it could be 8.
Could we pull back up the map that was, and I know that was an applicant provided map, but maybe could staff just confirm that we are looking at kind of the right? The one that showed the second story circled?
Yeah, because 26 Apollo.
So while you're bringing that up, I do want to just point out a couple of things, just with regards to, I still, we call it I call it an official document because it is officially published on the building, the planning department's website. But it is not a rule, but it is factors to consider when proposing a second story. And it is very much I think, in supporting of getting to the guidelines of evaluating neighborhood character. So I still maintain that it is guidance on for us and for applicants to think about making that finding and alternatives. So I do want to make that clear, that it's a memo from whoever wrote this, the director, to the public and the board of how to consider this and use that as data points is something I want to call out.
So it sounds like two of us are opposed no matter what to any second. Oh, sorry. Two of us are opposed no matter what to any second story. I think both of you, right, are against any second story.
I definitely am.
I won't say definitely.
Okay.
But I would need a lot of convincing. My biggest thing, and call it self-driven hardship. Like I think you get into that when we were talking about variances and small things. Like to me, it is a active decision to try and save 50% of the house. That is a big decision. That is a decision that the applicant has full control over. It's not like a minor change that then hits a variant, then triggers a variance, and that in my mind is more not necessarily I'm getting rid of it. Can't think of the word
You're saying there's establishing a rule that that isn't really a rule. They're imposing themselves with a presumption that they can't change.
Exactly, because they can change it.
I'm not sure.
I mean, I think the one thing about that is, budget. Like
It's
working
huge.
with the existing, these are expensive properties. It's expensive to build.
It's really, really expensive to do tabula rasa.
So trying to work with it, that is to say, well, no, just knock it down and build something that, fits in that crazy shaped thing. I think, I wouldn't want to go there. I do want to say that, Brian, thank you for that description, because I think for me with, I don't live there. My brother and sister-in-law live there for years. We've designed homes there, so I am very familiar with the neighborhood, but I'm not the one walking my dog every day. The second story in that open kind of sweep doesn't bother me. The fact that it's removed from the other houses doesn't bother me. And I think that you're living in a neighborhood, clearly the majority of the neighborhood is encouraging and supportive of variances, setback variances. So it feels like the neighborly thing to do is to really see if they can come up with something on the first floor.
Yeah, I think if there was similar to how there's a map of 2 stories, if there was a map that showed the density of variances that have been granted for setback variances and lot coverage variances in that neighborhood, it would be 3x.
I know. We did a house that we ended up, having
Doing
to,
that, yeah.
26 Apollo, I think, and We tried to go up. You probably said
Well,
it.
no, 26 Apollo was, I was a little bit torn because it was such a beautiful backyard. And I think one of the challenges is also that you destroy the backyard and the outdoor living space. But I think that,
Yeah.
you know, the overall benefit that the collective neighborhood gets is more.
Well, and looking at this too, because there are just these big kind of open side yards, I think that there is room to pull the garage even more forward and to put some rooms on the other side of the garage if we are supportive of setback variances. And that seems to be the secondary space over there. So that seems like it might be more appropriate for the architect to focus on how to create some more space over there and then pull everything forward as much as they can.
I mean, architecturally, you can make a second story look like a 1.5 story.
Yeah.
It's possible, and it won't look as imposing. They could put the massing in the middle of the building, and that could actually, by putting a nice eave on it, it could actually just looks like a little bump up. So I think for me, like, I know you're opposed to it no matter what, but I am open to seeing a massing if it's in the center. I mean, and I understand this notion of views, but I also have to say that there's a lot of mature trees out there, and I was taking pictures of lots of trees, and those trees and those hedges are pretty imposing, and they would block anyone's view as they mature. But I don't know. All I just want to say is I'm open to what's going on. I want to see a second iteration. That's where I stand. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that again, we can't say that, yes, if you came back with like variances that we would approve them, right, without seeing an application that had them. But I think that historically, the design review board in this neighborhood has been much more supportive of variances that keep homes at a 1-story as opposed to a 2-story. So.
Yeah, I think if they're not asking for variances, it has a nice massing. I think if they ask for a second story and variances, I don't think that's tenable. I don't know. Yeah.
All right, so I think that at this point, we'd be looking for a continuance for the application to come back with something like, again, I think some of us strongly want to see a 1-story, some would be open to a 2-story. I think the applicant will have to make a decision on what they want to do. So.
That's good.
All right, with that, a motion to continue. Do we have a date that we'd be looking at?
The next meetings are scheduled for March, that's not the calendar, March 5th and March 19th. Could I ask one point of clarification though before we schedule? I know that there's a little bit of a difference in opinion whether you're requesting that a second story come back versus a single story. Are there any just general kind of comments, any specific comments regarding window placement? Are there any comments on the exterior improvements, or is it more just the massing is too much? Just to see if there's any like specific I know it's difficult, but if there's any kind of specific direction that we could provide to the applicant.
I think the massing as it is looks unbalanced.
Yes. Agreed. I think that if a second story is considered, it needs to be brought in and kind of incorporated into the volumes of the first floor a little bit more.
Yeah, the roof volumes.
That's
Yeah,
the
the roof.
direction they go in.
The roof pitches and like the pitch. I'm just like that. It's all over the place. It seems a bit patchworky. Yeah.
Well, just kind of.
Okay. If I may, through the chair,
Yeah.
I recommend continuing to a date uncertain so that we can make sure that the architect is able to provide something for you to review.
We get a motion to continue 68 Mercury Avenue? To a
I
date?
move to move PH to a date uncertain.
Second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none. And the application for 68 Mercury continues to a future date. With that, we bring it to adjournment. Thank you, everyone.